The Spiderwick Chronicles is one of the film games that I've played during my childhood. These games were intercut with parts of the film instead of a regular cutscene and generally were enjoyable, primarily due to the fact that they were a direct adaptation of a good plot, yet contained more interactivity, unlike the original film. I've replayed this game over a dozen times, I must admit. It is always fun for me. I still remember when I couldn't handle the final boss and had to call in my dad to get through that part. I was so terrified that I even exited the room while he played it. Obviously, now I replay it with ease and quite quickly, but this game brings back amazing bonding moments that I had with my dad when I was younger. It was very enjoyable replaying this game for this video, and is definitely a game that, despite having a single unchanged story, is fun to replay. This game doesn't really have a proper intro like some others, but nevertheless, this still does the job of hyping the player up to play the game. So, without further ado, here is the Spiderwick Chronicles Revisited. The gameplay is not very complex. It is a third-person action-adventure game. Each character that you play has their own specific weapon, be that melee or ranged, as well as power-ups that you can collect that give you special abilities for a limited amount of time. As you could see from the intro, you play as the Grace siblings and Thimbletack, a brownie living in the house. Each character has their fighting style that is unique to them and makes playing them interesting. I'll discuss the characters in more detail later in the video. The game offers a number of different settings that you can explore, ranging from the estate, the forest road, the forest, the deep forest, as well as some underground tunnels and the small spaces in the walls that Thimbletack goes to. All the locations are crafted in such a way that makes it worth your time to revisit with a different character to find an upgrade or get into a location that is otherwise inaccessible. The game encourages you to explore due to the fact that there are these sprites flying around. They are the ones that give you your power-ups. These power-ups range from health, diversion, speed increase, protective barrier, and damage. When you catch one, you must quickly trace it into your notebook to capture it, giving it more interactivity that way. You can have 3 sprites at any given moment. To capture different ones, you have to use the ability of one that you have. As I mentioned before, you play as the 3 Grace siblings and Thimbletack. You switch between them during the story, which encourages you to sidetrack and explore while you're playing as a certain character, since you only get 1 or 2 chances before the main story ends and there isn't much more to do. After you finish the game, you have access to some challenges, collectibles, and general interactions between the characters. I personally never cared to play much after I finished the story. I always prefer to just do all the exploring and collectibles during the story, so that when it ends I only have the challenges that open after it. There is a separate game mode which is basically a survive the longest challenge. It is weird that the camera is completely different. It isn't the regular third person behind the character POV. Instead, it is a third person far away camera angle. It is an okay part of the game, to be honest, considering this is just a film game. This game mode is a great addition that adds some variety to it. As usual for this chapter, beware of spoilers. I do recommend playing this game. It is short and fun to play. To skip the spoilers, go to this timestamp. The story is practically identical to the film story, yet it properly adapts it to be an enjoyable game, adding more action and interactivity. In the past, Arthur Spiderwick writes a field guide to the invisible world that he has encountered in the woods surrounding the house. He then hides the book, seals it, and protects the house from a shape-shifting ogre, Mulgrath. He then disappears. Decades later, the Grace family, consisting of a recently divorced mother and her 3 children, moves into this house. Here we are introduced to the 3 main protagonists. While exploring the house, one of the twin brothers, Jared, finds the sealed field guide, opens it despite seeing a note warning anyone not to do so. With this action, he sends a signal to the dangerous ogre, informing him basically where the book is. Shortly after, Jared meets the house boggart Thimbletack, who gives him a stone through which he can see the hidden world. When his twin brother is taken away by the goblins, Jared goes after him, having the book in his possession. Before saving his brother, Jared meets a hobgoblin named Hogsqueal. The hobgoblin's spit allows Jared to see the invisible world without the use of a special stone that he had to use before. Hogsqueal then moves onto a tree branch next to the house, and it is introduced that he absolutely loves eating birds. Jared manages to save his brother and get him back to the house, losing a couple pages of the field guide in the process. The content of these pages allows Mulgrath and the goblins to breach the protective mushroom circle around the house. That can be done at midnight, creating a timed scenario within the story. The siblings visit their Aunt Lucinda, Arthur Spiderwick's daughter. She tells them that they need to find Arthur Spiderwick, who is in a different realm, one which allows him to not age at all. They get back to the house and summon a griffin to get to Arthur Spiderwick. They meet him and ask him to destroy the book, only to find out that they didn't take it with them, courtesy of Thimbletack switching it out for a different one, leaving the field guide at the house. They escape the realm and get back to the house, where they must defend it from the goblins. A timed oven bomb filled with tomato juice, salt and vinegar is set and goes off after 5 minutes, during which the family fights off the goblins. They hide as the bomb goes off and silences all the chaos. After a short while, Mulgrath breaks in and chases after Jared through the house and onto the very top of the highest tower, cornering Jared. Without any other choice, Jared tosses the field guide. Mulgrath leaps after it, catching it and turning into a bird. He then begins to fly away, yet is snatched and eaten by the bird-loving Hogsqueal. The family reunites, and the game's story ends here. Jared is the main protagonist of the game. He is one of the twin brothers. He's the aggressive and impulsive brother who finds the field guide and opens it. He wields a baseball bat as his weapon, with a slingshot as his ranged alternative. Simon is Jared's twin brother, who is the exact opposite of him. He's rational, calm, and smart. He wields a handmade tomato juice spray gun, which he uses as his weapon against the goblins, with stones being his throwing choice. Mallory is the oldest sister. She is a fencer, making her weapon of choice her fencing sword. She dismisses Jared's warnings of the goblin's existence at first, yet after a confrontation with a then invisible enemy, is convinced to help Jared fix the mess he created. Thimbletack is the house brownie, basically a mouse-like creature who turns into a boggart when angry. He helps out the siblings with knowledge of the invisible world, as well as his size allows him to access the walls in the house, where he kept some important items. A good question for this game. I think the game did age well. This is because of the fact that it is a film game. The story is fun to play, it doesn't take much time, about 1.5 hours. Taking that into consideration, it is fun enough and short enough to make it a pleasant experience to play. This game has been the most nostalgic to replay so far, and looking at the list of games I have planned, might be the most nostalgic one out of all of them. It is a game that has so much potential. A modern day open world RPG would be so fun in this world. The forests, underground, and other locations could be incredibly amazing to revisit. Generally, this game is fun to remind myself on from time to time, replay, and get my bi-monthly dose of nostalgia. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and would like me to revisit more old games, then make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. I would really appreciate any feedback or suggestions in the comments. Anyways, thanks for watching and see you next time.